if you are a high ticket sales rep or an aspiring high ticket sales rep and you're looking to land a job, you're probably facing one of these two things. Businesses and recruiters and sales managers saying, we're not hiring from X country, right? X being your country, wherever you're based and from, that's outside of the US, or Canada. If you're Canadian, this doesn't really apply to you. You're basically the same thing. I know Canada's not for sale, but is what it is. And we're only bringing on US talent. We're only hiring closers / setters from the US, right? You're probably dealing with one of those two things. And if you're not yet, you probably will. And so in this video, I'm going to give you the structures and strategies that I recommend to everyone that I work with who's not based in the US, that they use in the interview and application process to avoid these being a roadblock in their process. So that's what this video is going to be. And before I get into those specifics, I want to just cover the way in which I look at this, which is that we're not hiring non-US sales reps is essentially a smokescreen objection, right? In a sales call, when a prospect is scared to make a decision, to move forwards, to invest, they'll typically give you a smokescreen objection. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my wife. I need to pet my dog. I need to meditate. I need to pray, whatever it is, right? It's a smokescreen objection. That's how it's referred to in the industry. And I believe that this is that same concept, right? In the sales call, your prospect is scared to invest $10,000 into their education, right? In the interview process, this business is scared to invest the time and money and effort into a sales rep from a country they've either hired from before and the hire didn't go well, or they haven't hired from before and therefore they don't have proof in the fact that it will go well, right? That's what happens. And that's what exists in the mind of this recruiter or this business owner who's telling you one of these two things, right? And so it's your job to take that prospect, right? This business owner or recruiter or sales manager from this state of fear to a position where they can no longer deny that you are just as viable of a candidate for this job as someone based in the US. And so I'm going to go through the 4 reasons behind this fear, the 4 reasons behind this smokescreen objection, and the reasoning behind it that they will give you when you ask them for more clarity, and your way to handle that objection like you would handle an objection in a sales call. So that's what I'm going to go over here. Now, the 4 kind of real reasons, right, that this business will give you this smokescreen objection is number 1, time zone, right? You're not based in the same time zone as the US and therefore hours are different. Accent / language. Now, language and accent are obviously 2 very different things, but primarily I'm going to talk here about accent. You don't sound the way that our prospects sound, or you don't sound the way that the founder sounds, and therefore it's going to be a problem with prospects. Tax, right? We can't simply process the taxes and do that financial stuff, right? I'm not a tax expert myself, but it's going to be more difficult when we're doing the taxes, and therefore we're only hiring US based people, and licensing. And so these first 3, time zone, accent, tax, are all things that we can get around. Licensing is a very rare one. You won't really find it in the actual high ticket sales space, but you may find it in some offers. And so I will talk about it, but let's talk about these 3 first, right? Time zone. The business is going to tell you, well, you're not based in the same time zone. So this is for all of my Australians, Asians, Europeans, right? Africans as well, right? The hours that our prospects are taking calls are not the same hours that you're working. And therefore, we don't have leads in your time zone. Or if you tell us, yeah, but I'm happy to work those hours, well, we don't want you working tired. We don't want you working a graveyard shift, taking calls, and therefore being sloppy, not performing, not closing deals, and losing us money and time, right? Because at the end of the day, the fear is we don't have proof that hiring someone in your situation can work or will work, right? And so for you, what you need to do is show them why you're happy to work their time zone, right? EST hours, PST hours, whatever it is. Now, I'm not saying I advise doing this, right? If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? If you're a morning person, you're not going to want to work US hours from Europe, right? If you're a late night person, you're not going to want to work US hours from Australia. And so, do what works for you. Don't just follow these tactics because I said you should. Make sure that whatever it is that you're doing is actually going to fit with your life and your lifestyle. But no leads in your time zone. As long as you're happy to work US hours and that works for you, problem solved, right? Immediately. Now, the second part of that is we don't want reps working tired, which is a little bit more difficult, right? And so the overcome to this ideally is, I'm already used to it. I've been working US hours for the last 6 months, or I've already consistently worked US hours. I've worked it before in a job, or I am currently on a schedule where I'm working US hours in the space, and so it's no big deal, right? And even if this isn't the case, you can make this the case, right? You can, from today onwards, live your life with a work/education schedule in the US time zone and go to sleep a little bit later and wake up a little bit later, right? If you have that control over your life, you should do that. And that would be my recommendation, because that's going to give you this objection handle. Now, again, if that doesn't work for your lifestyle, you're going to have to find something else. And this video realistically isn't for you. But as long as you can say that and confidently say that, you can move forwards from the time zone thing. And that's why I put it first, because it's realistically the least important. The second one here, accent. Right, I added onto this language because it ties in. If you don't speak English at a perfectly fluent level, I would focus first before looking to land your sales job or looking to get good at sales. Perfect your English. The reason being is it's going to be very difficult to sell and have conversations with people if you don't speak their language fluently. And so if you're watching this video, you probably do. If you're listening to me and you can understand me despite my accent and being a little bit all over the place, you probably speak perfectly good English. But if you don't, that would be my first focus. Then the second part of that is accent. Now, I would advise that you do whatever you can to assimilate your accent towards the US demographic as much as you can. Right, I'm Australian originally. If you compare the way that I talk now to the way that I talked when I was 18 before I moved to the US, very, very different. Right, much more Australian previously, much less Australian now, and that's come naturally from just working in the US market and living and amongst people in the US and working amongst people from the US. But I would do whatever you can to try and get closer to a US sounding accent, because that's going to limit this objection from coming up. But the reason that businesses will tell you this is prospects aren't going to trust you. Our prospects are special prospects, right? They don't just get sold to. They need to trust and believe in you. They need to hear the accent and blah, 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 right? That's the fear. We don't have proof that someone with a British accent, someone with a Nigerian accent, someone with a Japanese accent is going to perform, because we haven't seen it done before and we're not willing to take that risk, right? Your job when that comes up is, absolutely, I understand the hesitation in bringing someone on with my accent, but just out of curiosity, if someone did come on board and they had an accent, but they still closed at a higher level than the rest of the team, would you still be willing? Would you not be willing to bring them on simply because they have that accent, right? That's almost the talk track, right? And I'm it's not perfect what I just said there. You can practice that and iterate that, but that's essentially what the path that you want to take them down is. Sure, I don't have the accent, but I have the skills, and the skills are much more important than your assumptions around how my accent is going to perform on your offer. If I have the skills to perform on your offer, do you think that I can do it? Well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, now you're in a position where you can say to them, you can get confident and say, awesome, are you happy to give me an opportunity to prove my skills to you right now? We jump into a role play. You give me the top 3 objections that your prospects give you, and I show you exactly how I would handle them, so I have the skill set necessary to perform on this offer, despite the potential hesitations you guys have around my accent, right? That's the conversation you want to have with them, and that's the position that you want to put yourself in, is where they agree with you that accent is not as important as skill, and therefore, if you can prove the skill, They believe that you can perform in that role. And then you put yourself in a position to prove the skill. Now, if you don't have the skills, it's going to be a little bit tough. But you want to obviously be in a position when you're applying for these jobs that you feel confident in and that you have the skills to show them that you can perform, right? So I hope that makes sense. But that's kind of the solution here to the accent/language. Now, it's a similar thing here with the tax, but here's what they'll say to you, right? Is we can only contract to people, we can only hire people because a high ticket sales job is almost always going to be a contracting role that we can W-9 here in the US. And so we're not able to hire people from your country, right? That's the reasoning or potential reasoning they're going to give you for not hiring you or not wanting to hire you or not being willing to give you a chance to be hired into their business. And so here's the couple of solutions you have to this. Number one, legal entity. Very, very simple. If you have an LLC or a registered company, wherever it is that you're based, you can essentially just tell them, no, I totally understand, but I do have a legal entity here in Armenia, which you can contract to and you can sign XY. I don't know what it is, but I would do your research and understand what do they need to do on their end to contract out to someone from your country, to a business based in your country. And then you can tell them that, because I'm sure that they hire international contractors as VAs and whatever other roles and positions that they have on board. And therefore it's, again, just a smokescreen objection behind the fear of them not wanting to bring you on board. And so that's a very easy way to kind of circumnavigate that objection, right? The second way around this, right, is very simply, I don't know the data. I would suspect 90 to 95% of these high ticket business owners don't file their own taxes. I know I don't. I don't know anyone personally who does, because as a high ticket business owner, you don't want to be bothered with that stuff, right? And so for that reason, the headache that comes up from having to contract to people that you can't just simply W-9 in the US is not their burden. They're not burdened by having to figure out the tax stuff to contract to someone internationally. That's their accountant's job. So your conversation that you have is, oh, I totally understand that it's a bit of a headache to contract to people outside the US. Do you file your own taxes, right? They're probably going to say no. Okay, cool. So you have an accountant that does all of that stuff? Yeah, we do. Great. So it's going to be Jeff's job to figure all of this stuff out. As long as I have the skills, you'd be happy to bring me on board and we can leave Jeff, the accountant, to figure all of the tax stuff out? Well, I guess so, right? Like that, again, that's the position you want to put them in, is where you can show them you're worth the headache. Even if they file their own taxes, right? If it's worth the headache, meaning you actually produce a lot of revenue for their business, it's going to be worth the headache. And therefore, we're happy to bring you on board, right? Again, that's the position you want to put yourself in. And so the same way as we did here, we want to put them in a position where we can demonstrate our skills so that they can look at those skills and go, fair enough. It's worth me taking an extra 5 hours once a year to figure out this international tax stuff and contract out to Jackson from Australia, despite me not being able to simply W-9 him, right? That's the position you want to put yourself in, and you do that the same process here, right? Okay, if I can prove to you that I have the skill sets to perform in this offer, do you think it would be worth the headache to bring me on board if I showed you I had a really high level of skill? Absolutely. Okay, give me your top 3 objections, blah, 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 right? That's the process you want to go through here. Now, the fourth and final one, I put this in here because it will exist sometimes, not really in high ticket offers, or not at all in high ticket offers. It'll exist in other industries, predominantly insurance, potentially things like solar, like remote solar. I don't know of any other industries that will involve like medical device sales and shit like that. But again, it's not high ticket sales. It's a different 1099 sales industry, but it still exists. And so you may come across this one. This is the only one that is real and that you can't avoid, right? If you can't legally be licensed as a United States citizen in a state somewhere in the US where you can legally sell these services or this product or whatever, well, we're out of luck there. And so that's the only real objection that exists. If that comes up, you kind of just have to move on. There's nothing I can do to help you apart from, maybe trying to find you someone that you can marry and get a green card through. But that's not my business. I connect sales reps with businesses. I don't connect sales reps with spouses. So that's the only real one that exists. The other three that are the three you're really going to come across, that's exactly how you handle them. Time zone, I'm used to it. I've been there. I've done that. I'm already working those US hours, so it's no problem for me whatsoever. Accent, absolutely, I understand the hesitations around my accent. If I had the skill set to outperform people with a US accent, would you still not want to bring me on board simply because of my accent? No, absolutely not. Taxes, if it took you an extra couple of hours each year when you file your taxes to contract to someone internationally, but they had the skill set to outperform all of the people based in the US, would you still not be willing to bring me on board? Absolutely not. Okay, great. Right? The number 2 and number 3 put ourselves in a position to prove our skill and provide that evidence that we can perform despite accent or despite it being more difficult for taxes. Time zone, show them that you're happy to work those hours and it hasn't been a problem for you up to now. So I hope that this is helpful. Definitely subscribe, like the video, comment if there's something else you want me to talk about. I'm going to be dropping a lot of source this year on high ticket sales, landing jobs in the space. So I hope this was helpful. If you need anything, you can always drop a comment or reach out to me through Instagram. Shoot me a DM. Always happy to help and answer some questions there. Cheers.